MP say the handshake made the House boring. President Uhuru Kenyatta and opposition chief Raila Odinga made peace more than 6 months ago, but the ripple effects of their famous handshake are still being felt. Parliament is one institution that has been affected by the March 9th pact between the two. Yesterday, two MPs, which have not been named here, were overheard complaining that parliamentary proceedings and committee meetings were no longer as exciting as they were before the handshake. One saying, "I no longer look forward to attending parliamentary business since Uhuru and Raila came together." Is this true? Yesterday, Ahmed Nasir also said that we have become a one-party state as a result of this handshake. Honorable Kang'ata, what do you make of that?
Before the handshake, Parliament as it is now is very boring in the absence of the executive in Parliament. When we decided to go purely presidential and remove the executive from attending sessions of Parliament, you know, I've had the advantage of working in Parliament before as a member of staff, and I really used to enjoy question time. Ministers being put to task on the floor of the House by members of Parliament, the representatives of the people. It was such a very good moment to hold those who are in positions of authority to account. As it is now, you find members of Parliament asking questions to fellow members of Parliament in the name of departmental committee chairpersons. What do they know? Are they government? It is one of the lowest moments in our history as a country to have the executive outside Parliament. Now, to make it worse, you know, Parliament by its nature, because of politics, is supposed to be adversarial without being confrontational. The business of Parliament is supposed to be adversarial, us versus them. But now when we have a situation where the major opposition party has gone to bed, nowadays when you look at the relationship between Adan Duale and John Badi, it's like John Badi is the deputy leader of majority in the House. There is hardly anything that they disagree on anymore. You don't see a situation of checks anymore. When we had the most controversial issue the other day, the issue of the taxes, Mheshimiwa Mbadi was the one seconding Duale. You wonder what the hell is going on. So the handshake, in a way, has made Parliament a very boring place. But before that, the Constitution itself has made Parliament a very boring place. I think it is time I wish we could rush the clock and first of all, amend the Constitution, return the executive to Parliament, and have an official leader of opposition in Parliament whose job will be to officially check what government is doing, not some leader of minority there who agrees with the leader of majority at any one time. So that is the situation we are in, indeed. I agree that Parliament has become very boring.
Senator, let me bring you in on this because you wonder who loses as a result of there not being an opposition. Honorable Kang'ata said, look what happened with the finance bill. Regular Wananchi are really suffering because we found politicians on one side. Is anyone really speaking for the regular man when it comes to various important issues in this country?
Yes, I agree. There is every likelihood that the Wananchi may as well lose, because when you have a very strong opposition, it assists in several ways. Number one, oversighting the government. Number two, also it creates a good ground for that opposition to train, probably to get government. It gives alternative views. When it comes to budget, they ought to give us a shadow budget, for instance. They tell us, if we were in government, this is what we would do. So the truth is, when you don't have a very strong opposition, the Mwananchi loses. But then again, Kenyans cannot have their cake and eat it. When you want what we call peace, at times you may have to weigh what do you want, surely. Because on one hand, handshake is positive. It has assisted us to go forward. Now we don't have a lot of noise. The country seems to be moving to the right direction. But on the other hand, it is true, there are issues concerning do we have a strong oversighting institution in Parliament? For instance, we have Public Accounts Committee, which is headed by a person in the opposition. Public Investment Committee of the National Assembly, it is headed by a person in the opposition. Will the opposition still push the government? And now that they are together in one, let me say, it appears like a cross-party coalition. So to me, incidentally, once we adopt the new system some people are pushing for, the one they are talking of, a grand coalition government, once we amend the constitution, now we will be institutionalizing the so-called handshake. And therefore, it may also have that negative or demerit, where everyone is in government, there is no oversight. To me, I think we need still as a country, we need to ensure we have a strong opposition. An opposition which looks at politics, it sees a possibility of seizing government, it continues pounding the government so that it endears itself to the people and it is able to ascend to government through that. Of course, the reason why that ideal situation is not applying to Kenya is a problem of tribalism and ethnic politics.
You know, and yeah, go ahead, Honorable. Let me see.
I think I will agree to disagree. I'll agree in a way that yes, Parliament was once a very lively place because of the executive being part and parcel, where ministers were, you know, responding to questions immediately. In the case of such an accident, you will ask the minister the following day in Parliament, and you will get real-time response, not giving, serving a minister's 7-day notice, or which you are not even sure they will come or not. But when a minister and is a part and parcel of the members of Parliament, he is able to be asked, he'll say, probably I'll answer tomorrow, he'll be given time, but he'll be there. That's part that made also Parliament very lively, because Kenyans were seen now, members of Parliament were tasking and oversighting the executive real time. I'll disagree to say that the handshake has made the Parliament boring. In fact, were you even elected or nominated to be entertained in the first place? So that's not an entertainment joint for you to say, nice, boring. But the makers of this constitution did not envisage that the tenets of democracy do not provide a situation whereby the opposition's work is just to oppose anything. I mean, it comes at a time when you have to support something that makes sense for the nation, just because you belong to an opposition. For example, when the same bill was passed by the 11th Parliament, it was because of the tyranny of numbers that this bill passed. Now, these people were just passing. They did not even read, because, you know, we are the majority, let's pass it. We've said you have to punish the members of the opposition, and there's no opposition in the first place. There is the minority and the majority. So this word opposition probably was carefully taken away to leave this habit of people thinking that you have to oppose each and everything that comes out, even if it benefits Kenyans, even if it benefits this country, you just need to oppose it. So for somebody to say it's boring because the opposition is not standing against the Parliament, I mean the executive, the ruling party all the time, I think is quite dishonest. That was not supposed to be the way democracy is supposed to be run. We oppose where you need to oppose and support where you need to support.
You know, the interesting bit, which is what Senator Kang'ata had said, is peace is with us now. And it's funny, it took two individuals at the top to agree that finally we see peace and stability in the country. And it's unfortunate in a way because it shows how much politics is entrenched in our society. What does this mean for Kenya moving forward, that if these two fall out, are we back to Kenya before the handshake?
Well, allow me to say this. I also want to agree a bit to the extent that we need somehow to think of how to get these ministers back into the House. But allow me to disagree that the fact that the handshake took place, in fact, I want to say long live handshake. Because what I think I want to train ourselves as MPs and the Kenyan mind, let us be objective and not subjective. What we are saying here is, for example, the case being cited about the VAT thing. Actually, the mistake, if it is, or the burden on the Wananchi, was done by the 11th Parliament. Yes, they thought about it and then suspended it. by 2 years. As things were happening, I think that Parliament should have worked around amending that very bill to remove the whole thing to read 0. But as at the time we were suspending it again through the bill, the motion that, the amendment that Honorable Jeanette brought to the House, the truth is it was still reading 16. Then for it to have taken effect or for it to have been suspended again, the President needed to assent. Now that he refused to assent it, even if we rejected it that day, what would have happened is that the 16 would stand. There was no amendment that was making that thing read 0. And that is the truth that the public, the Wanjiku and the Atieno that we are talking about, need to be told. And so what the opposition did was, okay, he has said we do 8%. Now, the position we took was, let it be temporal as we work to remove it completely, and also as we work to check on the budget. There are cases where we think there are unnecessary expenditures and unnecessary losses of money through the ministries, through, you know, the special funds and so many things. So the issue of the opposition not existing because of the handshake is fake. That one I want to dismiss with all its, you know. What we are saying here is to oppose or to disagree does not mean enmity, like what the politics of Kenya has always wanted to insinuate. That if now that Honorable Raila is the leader of the opposition, he should not sit on a table like this and discuss with the government and all this. I think let's look at a family. We are friends, great friends, man and wife, but sometimes we disagree in these families. I think this is the kind of thing that we as leaders need to portray. I really think when there is something in Parliament that we need to discuss and some people propose and some people oppose, it is healthy. And therefore, I think parliamentarians, we need simply to get our bearing in this whole thing and play our role. It is important that when there is an issue at hand, we oppose it when it is due for opposing, and we support it when it is due to be supported. So let us not reduce the idea of opposing and just to the kind of the noise that we have been making in this republic. I think I am for the idea of peacefully and objectively discussing issues and showing the nation why do we disagree with this, why do we agree with this one.
Honorable
I wanted, like I said earlier, by the very nature of the political situation of Parliament, Parliament is supposed to be adversarial without being confrontational.
Right.
For example, I mean, I'm elected under KANU, and I didn't take much, I didn't take much interest in the Jubilee manifesto, because, you know, in as much as we supported the president. But look at what is going on now. We are talking about Big Four. And our Jubilee administration came up with this Big Four agenda, and which is a wish. Manifesto is a wish that if we get elected into government, this is what we want to do for this country. And you'll find most of the time, most of these manifesto issues are influenced by lobbyists, and whose agenda perhaps is to make a quick kill, because they know what you need to do is to package something very nicely and sell to government, they buy, and you make your kickback and you're out. And who suffers? Mananchi. Has it been subjected to public participation, which is a key factor in our constitution now? The public participation that should be that manifesto should be subjected to is Parliament. Mm-hmm. The opposition has the opposition side of government, because we are all government. Has it looked at this thing, the agenda 4, clearly? What, for instance, if you ask yourself, we talk about housing. How is it a priority for us as a country? So, is it such a priority who are the beneficiaries of this housing? Who will build these houses? Entrepreneurs. And are they not the owners of this? You know, there is a lot happening in this country. So what I'm saying in simple terms is the way Parliament is constituted now is like we are just more or less of rubber stamping what is going on in what the executive decides because we are.
So do you think the Big Four agenda should include other aspects?
In my opinion, actually, it should be collapsed into big one. Universal health care.
So that's the most pressing issue right now.
That's the most pressing issue.
Can I comment on that?
Let's
yeah, go ahead.
Open the Pandora's box.
Well, I disagree completely to say that housing is not a priority. Incidentally, by the way, we have lost trillions of money by failing to champion the aspect of housing. Why? You know, housing, what it may do, by the way, is to bring people together. You will find in Kenya, development follows people wherever they are at a very great expense. You will find, for instance, if it's water, if it's a road, it goes all the way to reach, let's say, 5 people who are in 5 kilometers away. Ideally, any country that has developed in this world must be urbanized. The more you urbanize, the more easy it is for that country to grow. Places like England is almost 90% urbanized. America, I don't know, 80% urbanized. And housing is the key catalyst of urbanization. Because the idea will be you bring people in one area. And therefore, to me, housing, so far as it may trigger the process of urbanization, to me is the greatest amongst all other things we may have been doing. Because, by the way, for now, this country, we usually take infrastructure to follow about 5 or 3 people who are located millions of miles away. Whereas if those people could be brought together, you will give those services at a greater, at a more efficient cost.
I think, if you may allow me, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm reading Kamket's mind very, very well. I think we needed to have an opposition that is well-funded, an opposition that has structures, so that they are able to oversight the executive. So that, yes, housing, as he says, is a very important ingredient of economic development. But who now oversights all that project, that to make sure that it is, yes, done well, yes, as much as it is a good thing, it has no rogue people around it to, you know, maybe it's a way of siphoning public money, public funds. But now the opposition we have, it's a weak opposition because it lacks the funding, the capacity to be able to oversight the executive.
And someone said this essentially makes President Uhuru Kenyatta the most powerful president in Kenyan history because the opposition is not there to counter. And what do you make of that, Honorable?
I really don't think what we are saying is very right. Because this concept of housing the Big Four, and sorry to mention this, Honorable Kamket, you know, when you are saying that you supported the president and you didn't read the manifesto, then somebody's wondering, what did you really support? What did you really support? And that's another story for another day. But all the same, we are here. I'm thinking that the issue of housing, food security, health for our people, to be honest, somehow they are all very important things that are affecting people in this nation. Because you can't also talk of universal health when these people are in the wilderness being rained on. You know, somehow they have to be sheltered somewhere. It's a basic requirement. However, what I think I want to say here is, coming back to that budget, I don't know why we are insisting there is no opposition or there is no check. When we were going through that budget, I remember there was this clause that was creating some fund where taxes would go for this housing project. And I remember members interrogated this, and at some stage we actually dismissed it. And we said we are not going to burden the wananchi again with this project, as at now it may not look a priority. And I think if members understood everything that comes before the House objectively, including those who are in government, because the truth is, as we talk here, the real work of parliamentarians, even those who are in government, they are supposed to be playing that some sort of oversight role. And therefore, we cannot say that and there is now a weak opposition, and therefore we can't have our oversight role over the executive. I think that one will be abdicating our constitutional mandate as MPs in this nation. So what I'm appealing to us is that we are reaching a situation where now we must behave like I said earlier. I'm sorry I'm using this analogy, and the Honorable Kamket is not picking it up. I want us to look at it from the husband-wife kind of perspective. We can sometimes agree, we can sometimes disagree, but we remain friends, and we disagree objectively. We have these resources. Where do we put it? And I would encourage all the MPs, including the ones that are in government, we should not forget that even us, we can tell the executive, our executive, this thing you want to do is going to land us in this kind of bad corner. I think this is where we are missing it. We are kind of allowing a situation where we are now declaring that the executive or the president is the man that pulls this thing. Yes, because we have allowed it. The law allows us to say no. And I think this is what we should pick and use. We don't have to be cowed, and now we sit there, oh, now that Raila is not fighting anymore, so now we cannot speak. I think the MPs need to take up their rightful position and do according to the Constitution of Kenya. We will still provide that oversight.